Okay, did you ever feel like you were getting pressured? Like the cameraman's like, you're good, you're good to go, okay? Like, are you ready? You gotta go. I'm in charge here, okay? I'm on the stage. This is really fun. Are you having fun yet? Yeah, Susan's like, yeah, Marlene's like, oh yeah, this is awesome. Hey, well, this is gonna be great fun. And wait, we're missing your co-partner's name. Where's your co-partner?
Carolyn Gazella is sitting right down there.
Why are you sitting there? You're like, what happened to the front row seats? You have VIP seating here. Yes. Am I surprised?
We need the separation right now.
It's great. It's great. Well, this is a wonderful story. It's a powerful story. And who in here feels like in their life they've known somebody that has had cancer or knows somebody that had cancer? Anybody, put your hand up if it's true for you. You don't know anybody? But she knows, so your family, it's all the same count. We'll count you in as a 1. More shy. Like, I'm not going to raise my hand. Definitely not on that question. Look, my mom died of cancer, and it was misdiagnosed. And you realize that they screwed up. And you know what? It happens. The amazing part about what we're going to talk through in this hour, there's a book. If you have not seen this, by the way, we have one of these for each of you that's sitting in the audience. It's, how do I say this? You know, there comes a time where you don't want to deal with things, right? Like, who wants to talk about disease? Who wants to tell people? You get sick, it's really kind of your private story, isn't it? No matter what it is. And what happens in this book, and why it's so relevant, is that this is a book about connection. This is a book about the private moment of your life where you're making very big decisions. And when I got online and I saw the video and I started to look and I started to think, oh my gosh, you know, what if this was my story? Like, how would I deal with it? What would you do? What's the first move? If somebody said to you, hi, just want to let you know you have cancer. You know, how would you really think about it? I mean, can you imagine the moment you're told something like that? Because you always go to the worst, right? But you see, you don't have to go to the worst, but you have to have some choices. You have to have alternatives. You have to have people like my guest that I'm going to introduce to you who, does she look sick? Tell me, she's here, right? You made a choice. And that's why this book is so important. I get 20 books a week sometimes, and you're a naturopathic physician. This, you know, you've been through this understanding of this story. Dr. Lise Alshuler, is that the right, Alshuler?
Perfect.
Perfect, okay, want to make sure. You'll explain for people that don't understand what maybe a naturopathic doctor does and is, and your story. And I loved the video. They did this video that's like super bass. Right? Like, hi, I'm Lise, I'm in my living room, obviously, and I'm talking to my friend here, obviously. This is like really a bad video, right? That it was real. And it's a YouTube video, which is the most powerful stuff you can do now. It's just be real. Like, it wasn't highly produced, I'm going to be slick here. It was like, I'm actually not very slick, but I'm alive. And that's all that matters. You know? And that's all that mattered to me, because I was watching and I'm thinking, you know, points there. Because that video can make more impact than some decked out, glammed up thing that you go to about some story, because what matters to people is, can I trust you? Tell me your story. And if it impacts my story, I'm going to listen. And that's what this book meant to me when I saw it. So I want to congratulate both of you, you know, for putting this together. And I think we have, you know, some extraordinary time together. First, I want to talk to you about explain what a naturopathic doctor is in general.
Sure. Naturopathic doctors are people that have gone through pre-med and then have gone on to a 4-year medical school that specializes in natural medicine. So we learn the same ways to diagnose disease, but really specialize in natural therapies, lifestyle things to treat. And so we're sort of a hybrid between conventional doctors and alternative or purely natural doctors, because we really apply a scientific approach to natural healing.
And do you feel from how long are you doing that now?
16 years.
16 years. In 16 years, how has it changed? Your belief system, the industry, the people, about whether we respect that or not? What is it now?
Well, I think it's come out from being hidden away as something I use alternative therapies to I use alternative therapies.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that people realize is a really empowering and powerful thing to do. And I think that's because the public realizes it, the consumer realizes it, the science is starting to support it. There's excellent quality products now that there weren't before, and there's experts that are speaking about it on both the conventional side of the fence, so to speak, and on the alternative side of the fence. So, I think it's really coming into its own.
Yeah, it was funny today. There was a doctor from Harvard, and he was, years ago, doctors would not come on my program because they were afraid of the association. Can you imagine? They were like, you're afraid to come on my program? I'm afraid to have you on my program because of the association, right? And that was how it was for years. Now, literally every single day, every single PR agent is calling me about another medical doctor that wants in on the natural product sector. And yet, the most credible naturopath, real life experience, it's taken us as a whole society, 2 generations at least now to even come into recognition.
Yeah, and I don't want to make this too sugar-coated, because we've still got a ways to go, especially with regards to cancer. Carolyn and I go out and give talks, and it's always a very powerful experience for us, because so many people come up to us afterwards and say, what you said was so inspiring, thank you for being here, and my doctor isn't open to this. How do I put this together? How do I do this? And so there's just too many people in that situation still.
Yeah, well, that's, and we'll get into it, but I want to get right into your story. Let's talk about you, because really it's all about you.
It's all about me. Thank God, finally, where it's all about me. Even though I'm not
This is your moment. It's so not about me. I even got makeup on you.
Yeah.
Hello?
Finally, I'm slick and everything. That's good. Thank you for that.
Good.
I appreciate that.
You look good. So let's talk about your story. Isn't it fun to laugh about life when you know you could die?
Yeah.
Right? But you come on the other side, and there's joy that comes out of you that you can't go and get that. That comes from the inside. So tell your story, because it's important.
Sure. Well, and I'm also going to tell my co-author's story a little bit too, but my story started to, actually 5 years ago now. I was working at a cancer specialty hospital, so I was seeing people diagnosed with cancer every day, all day, and felt like I really knew a lot about the disease, and realized one day I did not know very much at all, because I got a call from my father who said, I just stepped off the plane, my friend rushed me into the hospital, and long story short, turns out he was diagnosed with advanced pancreatic cancer. He was given about 3 months to live. And knowing what I knew about the disease, I agreed with that prognosis. And turns out that my father was a very exuberant individual, and he took on this disease fully. He incorporated a lot of the natural therapies that Carolyn and I talk about in this book, and he actually lived for 17 months. But not only lived for 17 months, he really lived well. He actually said to me about a year into his diagnosis, I feel better now than I felt 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so to me that was, wow, this is really powerful stuff. So thought I had it figured out then, but obviously not, because in 2008 I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and was
Didn't see it coming?
No, it was quite a surprise. I don't have any obvious risk factors. I've been practicing what I preach to the best of my ability for a long time, and really learned a lot about what it means to go through chemotherapy, to go through radiation, to do that, though, with the help of natural therapies and natural lifestyle changes, so that I never felt like a sick person. I always felt like, hey, I'm a healthy person with breast cancer. I'm a healthy person getting chemotherapy. And so, to me, it was I get it now, on a cellular level, what this is really all about. This is about finding your wellness. And my co-author, Carolyn, is, just the perfect partner in this work. Not only is she a very bright and beautiful writer, but she herself has had cancer, and she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And she's just celebrated her 15th year of being cancer-free,
Wow.
which is fabulous.
That's huge. That's huge. It's huge. It's huge. And it's changing. The prognosis before, you wouldn't say 15 years. There was a time limit, and you knew it was coming. And I think because of this industry, it's going to change. We're going to change it. And, that's part of what we're going to talk about today because, we're going to talk about glutathione, we're going to talk about kiwahako, we're going to talk about why you can change it. So let's keep going.
Well, so back to Carolyn for a moment. Carolyn is, when we give our presentations, we have cartoons and we, keep people laughing, but we also recognize this is serious stuff. And Carolyn, unfortunately, was diagnosed at very close to the same time that she lost her mother to pancreatic cancer, and her sister was diagnosed with breast cancer. So she has had quite a family history of this disease as well. So we really understand what this means. It means loss for some people, and it means, an appreciation for life on the flip side of that. And we felt that we really needed our work in this world was
Thank you. You have no idea. We appreciate that. Okay, take.
So we, Carol and I, given our, very personal experiences with this illness, and my work as a doctor, we recognized how important it was to put all of what we knew together into a book that was accessible to the average person who didn't really know medicine, and something they could bring into their doctor at the same time and was well referenced so that they could actually get some guidance on how to live well with cancer. That's really our philosophy behind this book.
Yeah, living well with cancer, that's an interesting concept because so much of it's mental, so much of it's emotional. You let your mind slip, pretty much you're going to get taken down by cancer. And I'm sure you probably experienced that. You had to get a strong mind. Yeah, so that's really, and that's exciting for me to hear from you. So what did you discover along the way? Glutathione, because these are sitting here, so I know we're going to talk about it. You've heard me, some of you today, I got shingles. How the heck did I get shingles? I don't know. But I got shingles, and it was like, kill me now. And then, it's just a cascade of events, and glutathione came into my life during that time. Suntheanine, glutathione, a couple of things that were really important that changed my life. I literally felt like this is going to change my life. And Karen and I have talked about that. It was such a radical, when you're not the type of person that gets sick like you, it's such a shock. So tell me how did you keep moving, and where did the nutrition play a role in this?
Well, one of the pledges that Carolyn and I made to each other was that we were going to write this book, but we wanted it to stand up to anybody's scientific scrutiny. So we combed the research, and what we have here is scientifically valid information. So that means that when we talk about diet, we're talking about diet that the research has shown impacts your risk for cancer, your ability to heal from cancer. When we talk about lifestyle, same thing, and that goes for supplements. So supplements like glutathione are mentioned in our book because there's good, strong research. And
what's the research say?
Well, with regards to cancer, glutathione is such an important antioxidant in the body, and we all know that we need antioxidants, and as such, with cancer it's even more important because it's such an oxidative process. So a lot of the ill health from cancer is really a result of a lot of oxidative damage in the body. So on one level, glutathione can help people feel better, and it also has a pretty important role in terms of prevention. Just as one example, there's some cells in our immune system called natural killer cells, which we need to have very active because they're like the sentries that go out, find the cancer cells, and shoot them down. And it's also known that people who get cancer tend to have lower activity of their natural killer cells. Well, it turns out that one of the reasons for that is glutathione deficiency. So that's just one example of actually many in which glutathione is really important.
So it's naturally occurring in the body.
It's naturally, yeah.
And when you go to bring glutathione in as a natural supplement, like, I mean, super important. 12 years ago when I was, starting to record here, I would talk to companies and I would say, you have to brand. You have got to. So Cetria, you've got to do it, because I go to a store and if I don't get Cetria, I don't know what I'm getting. I don't know if there's science. Do you find that, like, that's very important? And are you noticed? Because I noticed there's a difference with different branded raw materials. Did you go after that and say, I want the science one? I want the one that's done the research that can prove it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And when Carol and I speak, we really are very mindful about, we actually had a bit of debate about this. Should we recommend brands, because, with the risk of being biased? But ultimately we decide, we owe it to these individuals.
Yeah.
Why tell them to go take glutathione if they're going to take a bad glutathione? I mean, if they're going to do this based on what we've told them, they need to take a good quality product. So absolutely, brands like Cetria, that really we know have done the research. It's a clean product. It's going to do what it's supposed to do. That's absolutely what we try to recommend.
So in a supplement, what is glutathione? I mean, where does it come from?
It's, as you said, our bodies make it, and they make it as an antioxidant in every cell. It's considered a tripeptide, so it's made up of 3 different amino acids, and it's ubiquitous in all our cells, and it's there because our cells are constantly doing things to process and create reactions, and those reactions generate a lot of free radicals. So the glutathione is there primarily to quench those free radicals and keep the cell healthy, basically.
So when you start taking it, and I've asked this question a lot, does it build up in your system? Are you starting some supplements, you get an immediate reaction on a functional level? With cancer especially, or any, even with my blood, shingles is blood, and they say it's one thing, but it's weak blood, and you look in Chinese medicine, it's the weak qi in the blood. Is glutathione going to build up in your system? Is it something that, whether you have cancer or not, you should be taking?
I would say more people need it than they realize, because as we get older, it starts to decrease. Our body can't make it as well. Plus, the ravages of our lifestyle start to catch up with us, and we get deficient in it. So particularly middle-aged and older adults really do need glutathione, I would say, in more cases than not. And it's not often something, in my experience, that people will notice an effect right away. It's not like caffeine or anything like that, but they will, for sure, start to just feel better, feel healthier, feel more vital, perhaps experience fewer colds, etc. Few weeks into it is generally my experience.
Is it something that, in limited budgets and times where people are really trying to consider, and again, we've talked about this several times, hey, everybody's trying to figure out, how are we going to put this into the budget? How are we going to, what's my priority? If I were to put this on I got the top, I want to say 10, but most people can't even go there. But you know what? I have a food product that I take. It's got 5,600 milligrams of every fruit and vegetable, organic, raw. I mean, it's packed in. So you're going to take more than 10 supplements if you're living life on a correct level. In that top 10, is this where you put this one and you go, you got to have this?
I would put it in the top 10 for sure. Yeah. Don't ask me which number, though.
Well, I would put it in the top. I would put it at...
Yeah, see, it's hard, isn't it?
I would put it at, I have to say, I can't say 1, because I don't know what 1 is. But I'll say 2. I'll say when I've seen some miraculous things, lately in the understanding of the glutathione. And especially because the Cetria is different. Can you explain first the difference between what Cetria really is versus just going to get raw glutathione?
Well, I don't know about raw glutathione.
I mean, like another unbranded.
Another brand?
Yeah.
Well, I know that this particular brand, Cetria, is fermented, and it's done in a very controlled way, so it's a very clean product, which is, from my perspective, the most important thing. And there's research that has been done on this product, which is also very important. So we know that this particular glutathione is absorbed and works.
So it's more bioavailable.
It's bioavailable and, yes, effective.
Yeah, yeah. Karen, can I mention the study? That I saw the video. This is a crazy video. Because, when I got the mercury poisoning, I started looking at the brain. I started looking at a lot of things in a very different way. And I kept thinking, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, what are all these things? And I went to my chiropractor last week, and he pulled me out of my other chiropractor's room and said, you got to see this. And there was a gentleman who's been a known chiropractor, very supportive of glutathione over the years, always very ahead of his time. He brought in a video where a gentleman in his 60s had Agent Orange poisoning, and he full out Parkinson's. Gets up, I mean, the guy, you know what Parkinson's looks like. He's shaking, his voice is shaking, and they would say to him, like, what day is today? And he would go like, Monday. It was radically, I mean, this guy was in it. And what the doctor, Dr. Perlmutter, did was and this was kind of foreign to me, but what he did was he did injectable glutathione. Literally within 30 minutes, I kid you not, 30 minutes, you could see the chemistry of his body change. And he got up, and they asked him to say the same word he'd been saying, almost no tremors. Started to walk, almost no tremors. And I said, well, is this like a fluke thing, or is this possible that with a nutritional supplement it could be radically that, I mean, it could happen, and this is what you're talking about. It can be.
Absolutely, and I think that is a great story, particularly because it's so important in Parkinson's. And when you use the injectable form like that, it really can have dramatic and quick effects, which I think is exactly when it should be used, when somebody has an established disease like that. Somebody else, like let's say you're interested in, I just want to prevent Parkinson's, that would be an oral supplementation opportunity. Right. Because you don't need the injection per se, but you definitely need to make sure you have enough glutathione in your system.
Well, and I go back to, because this show is about branded raw materials, it's about us having an honest conversation with each other. If you're going to pack and you're going to put a product together, you put tremendous products together at Food for Health. You do the research. That's why you're here. He puts the greatest product in the world together. He's on the floor looking for you, trying to find out who's the very best. So when he leaves here, I can trust him because he went and found you. That's the relationship that's going on this floor right now. And that's why it's so important. And so, as a naturopathic physician, a cancer survivor, you put this into your lifestyle. What does it mean to you? And what do you tell people when they're out there in the public, when you're talking after these talks and people are feeling like they're going to lose their life?
Well, Carolyn and I have a message of hope around this disease, but we're very particular about that being informed hope. So we want people to have hope because there's every reason to have hope, but it's based on having good information that they can trust. Just like you were saying, you need to trust your products, you need to trust your information, and that's really what this is about. It's about giving people guidance, taking the confusion away, taking the complexity away, and just laying it out in a very digestible, practical way. From where they are at. If they have a symptom, they need to know, what can I do for this symptom? If they're taking a certain chemotherapy, they need to know what supplements are going to help me and which ones shouldn't I take. So very practical, pragmatic, and again, research-based, so they can trust it.
Yeah, so what was the first question you asked when you found out that you had cancer?
The first question I asked?
Like, why God?
Yeah, I asked why, and that haunted me, to be honest, for about 4 months. It was probably the most difficult thing. How did I get this disease? Yeah. Why me? And I think that the most peace for me came when I stopped asking myself that question. I came up with some possible answers, but ultimately I realized there is really no answer, and that's not really even the right question to ask. Yeah. The right question to ask is, okay, I have this disease. How can I use this disease to transform my own life and to experience ultimately more love for life, for people, for myself, and to use this to learn how to be more well.
Were you taking glutathione before?
I was not, and I do now.
See? Go figure. Right? Like, doesn't that normally happen? In crisis, we learn, and we change. She's pointing. Karen's going, by the way, you're being very subtle. Right? Okay. So we're going to run a little bit long. They're going to kill me. So what? I'm in charge. So what are you pointing? She's like...
She wants me to mention Carolyn and I have a very important initiative, which is another home video that we... No, actually...
Yeah, you want to Google that over to me, okay? I'll put that on my site. No, I would put it on my site.
We'd like to invite you onto our home video.
Onto your sofa? Like, hi, I'm Danielle Lin, and I'm in their living room, and we're talking real stuff here.
No, we actually do have a very important initiative that we've started called cancerthrivers.net, and it's a website that has a newsletter, it has a blog on it, and it's really the beginnings of what we know is going to emerge into a multimedia effort to help transform cancer care, so that people who are diagnosed with this disease, people who are fearful about getting it, people who have had it and want to prevent getting it again, can access each other, access good information about it, and we can bring integration into oncology.
I know I'm going to be a little long, and that they're going to be mad, but that's okay. Do you have any idea how you got it as far as, I mean, do you think that pesticides, do you think, was there some correlation along the way that you said, boy, I look back on my life and the water I was getting, or I look back on my life and I was just under so much stress, or God, I was dealing with so many emotions. I mean, is there any of that correlation that you came together with?
Yeah, lots. I think I very much believe that cancer in many ways is an environmental disease. It's a disease of us as a society, of a human species. And we have a chart in the book where we actually have linked certain environmental toxins with certain cancer types. So, and we're all exposed to that by just being on the planet.
What's related to breast cancer?
Dioxins and PCBs primarily, and those are everywhere.
And you're getting them where? From what?
Well, they're in the soil from a lot of the pesticides that were used previously. Unfortunately, they're in a lot of plastics, and they're just very hard to avoid. They're now really in the soil of, and the dust, therefore the air, around the world. So
does glutathione play a role in the connection of that? Like, as you start looking at, I've had this toxic element, I'm brought into my body, I'm dealing with cancer. What role would the glutathione or the citria play in that? Yeah,
glutathione is really important. In fact, Kiwahaka invited me to speak about glutathione's role in detoxification last year, and it's a very important role. Glutathione is one of the primary detoxifying agents in the liver, so it's really critical to help us detoxify many different kinds of environmental toxicants.
And then when you were using the citria and the glutathione brand, and the liver, were you also nurturing it with different foods? Were there things that you did in combination that was very important?
Absolutely. I think that I often talk about setting a stool up, and on the stool are the supplements, but the legs of the stool are, one leg is diet, and really eating a plant-based whole foods diet. Another leg is lifestyle, so that includes being active and exercising and getting enough rest. And then the third leg is mental, emotional, spiritual health, and making sure that we have a mind-body connection and we're practicing some form of daily relaxation and joy. We have to have those three legs in order for the stool to sit, and then those supplements can be somewhere and have a foundation to work with.
Yeah, you just can't take supplements and then not sleep and then have, anger going on in your life, or, misery. So it's a balanced life is what you're talking about.
Yes.
And, I'd love you to come on my regular show, because I honestly, I have to say that I haven't been doing books on cancer. Sometimes you're just like, not going to do it, not in that headspace. But when I got this, I felt like this was an offering, and that was different. And I think that right now, everything we do, whether it's citria, if things are an offering versus, like, people send me stuff to sell, I want you to sell this for me. And I don't want to sell cancer. I don't want to sell stories about cancer. I want it to be an implication of change. And that's really what both of you have done. Karen, you've done a great job, and I just want to thank you. So you're going to do a book signing?
Yes, and I just want to thank you for that recognition. Carolyn and I, when we give our talks, they're always free of charge, and that's very important to us, and that's why...
The books are free of charge? When you're at
the talks are.
The talk, okay.
And it's because we really want to make this an offering, and that's also in part because we've partnered with companies like Kiwahaka that recognize the importance of this information to enable us to do that. But yeah, it's absolutely important.
They work hard. Kiwahaka's been, certainly, the reason I'm able to be on the air is because of great companies. And, Karen's been a great support. I mean, that's the best thing in the world is relationships. And it gets to come around and the circles around. And, I met some people from New Zealand, and where my heart is still there. And I said to the guys last night, because they were here looking to find out who was on the floor, and I said, I know who lies, I know who doesn't pay their bills, I know who you can trust, I know who does real research. Talk to me before you talk to anybody. And I mean that. I mean that. because it's definitive now. It's very clear who's doing the work, and Kiwahaka is a leader in the field and has set the precedent for many, many years. And because of that, almost everybody on this floor is moving into branded raw materials. So you've done one heck of a job to support the world. And glutathione is important, and Citria is equally, right up there. So I'm going to call you, and we'll book you on the show. And if you want to grab a seat back there, maybe you could do some book signing and
Sure.
give some books away. Would that be fair? Okay, everybody, thank you. You were terrific.
Thank you.
And we're so glad that you're here. And God's Spirit Divine never makes a mistake when they choose somebody to go out and carry a message to the world. Is that true? Yeah. So thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you both.